Jonathan Reynolds, your reflections on the passing of Alex Salmond.
Yeah, very sad news. I mean, an incredibly big figure in Scottish and UK politics, a formidable campaigner to be on the other side from. As a unionist, I could recognise in him, even though we had a different point of view, a passion for Scotland that underpinned everything he did. So very sad and thinking about his family.
Let's move on, if we may, to the bigness of this coming week, the investment summit. Can I just get one thing clear? Is the investment in London Gateway Port facility by the so-called rogue operator DP World on or is it off?
It is going ahead, and they're attending the summit. I mean, first of all, let me say I am so excited by this. I'm so excited by the transformation in the UK's investability that the change of government has brought about. Real, deep-seated policy and wider reasons underpin the platform that we can then go to the rest of the world around. But specifically with DP World, let me say, look, what happened with penal ferries was wrong. We believed it was wrong. The government at the time, the Conservative government, believed it was wrong. But the problem was it was legal. So we are changing that situation, and where a company can operate within that framework, we can work with them going forward.
Did you agree with your colleague Louise Haigh that a Labour government should boycott P&O?
Well, that's not the government's position.
No, but did you agree when she said it?
Oh, it isn't the government's position, Trevor. And what I would say, though, is that we, both my department and Louise and the Department of Transport, have worked very closely together. The employment bill, which my department sponsors, is a mechanism by which we can make sure that a penal ferry situation doesn't happen again. So we work very closely together. And as I say, we're changing the law. Where a company works within that, accepts that, we can talk to them about investments going forward.
But the politics of this is that she's a minister now. You're not campaigners anymore. And she basically undermined you, didn't she? Has she apologised yet?
Look, I don't see it that way. That's not the policy of the government. The investment's going ahead. DP World are attending the summit, which is going to be a tremendous event. And also, I'd say, you know, I work very closely with Louise on a whole range of really key policy areas that underpin investment. So she's part of the team that's delivered this success.
OK, you've got to defend your colleague. But tell me honestly, if you can, how close did we come to losing this £1 billion investment?
Look, we've had to have a conversation following some of the press reports. But, you know, look, as I say...
It could have gone, couldn't it?
They're attending. It's going ahead.
But it's part of a... couldn't it? This is pretty awkward.
Look, it's part of a set of investments that are truly eye-catching, that are truly underpinned by the fact that the UK now has a political stability it didn't have before the election. It's got a government outwardly looking to the world, an internationalist government, not picking fights with the European Union for domestic political reasons. It's a government shaping markets, removing barriers to investment. Those are the big things.
But the point here is that this has taught you a lesson, hasn't it? That you cannot behave in government in the way you behaved in opposition.
I don't think anyone in the new government needs that lesson. We understand the responsibility that we have.
Well, Louise Haigh obviously does.
Well, look, all I'll say is we have got now a summit going ahead with an incredible set of investments, things that will make everyone optimistic and see the future of this country is incredibly exciting and bright. And it's a team that delivers that. It's not just my department.
OK, I'm not just asking you this to be annoying, though obviously there's pleasure in that. I want to ask you about a specific thing. Why didn't you invite Elon Musk? You're desperate to get a company which sacks its employees by Zoom, but you're stiffy about the biggest car maker in the world because he put something on social media you didn't like.
Look, I'm not going to comment on particular invitations from particular personnel.
Come on, but Elon Musk is not some odd invitation. It is Elon Musk, biggest car maker in the world, richest man in the world. Why didn't you invite him?
Look, I'm not going to comment on the reasons for any specific person, but I can tell you we have 300 of the most significant investors, business figures, people who can bring significant amounts of capital to the UK. Big names, things that will make a big difference to working people's lives, and that's the criteria.
You're happy to talk to me about DP World, who sacks their workers. You're happy to invite the Saudis, who authorise the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, and they get the red carpet. Why isn't Musk being invited?
Well, I'm not going to comment.
This is you in opposition, isn't it, again?
No, not at all. This is about who can bring the kind of investments that will make the biggest difference to the UK, to working people's lives. The fact that we have, I think, in 100 days...
Musk hasn't got a bob or two that he could put in a car into Britain.
Well, look, the criteria and the selection, this is a summit. I know that everyone wants to come. I do understand that. Not everyone can come, and I'm not going to... I think it would be right to go through the individual decisions for individual people, but this is about what will make the biggest difference.
Look, you understand how weird this sounds. You want people to come and invest in Britain. You want people to bring their money. Yet the one person who probably has got more money to burn and would probably like to invest in Britain, in fact, he says so publicly when he didn't get the invitation, you're deciding he's not good enough. For what reason?
No, look, if people have an investment proposition for the UK, of course, I will talk to them about it. I'm not going to go through... Look, thousands of people, Trevor, wanted to come to this summit.
Come on.
Of course they did.
Elon Musk is not thousands of people.
Well, look, I'll simply say that the people coming, you'll see the scale of the investments, you'll see the opportunities for the UK,
Okay.
You'll see the kind of quality and depth of the engagement this new government has. And I think to individually talk about a certain person here or there, look, that's not right on them, let alone the government.
All right. 2 days ago, you had the first meeting of Council of Nations Regions. Prime Minister's former Chief of Staff, now envoy to Nations Regions, wasn't there. Did you miss her?
Look, I'm a little bit old-fashioned on this, Trevor. I don't think it's right to talk about members of staff who haven't got the ability to come on the media themselves.
I'm not asking you to talk about it. I'm just asking you whether you missed the fact that she was there, whether it was important or not.
Look, all I'll say is I think when I have worked with Sue Gray on a number of issues, I found her absolutely professional, a huge asset, a huge assistance. She's had a change of role in Downing Street. I think, look, for me, the big things that affect governments are things this week like the Employment Rights Bill, protecting workers in the workplace, the investment summit, bring billions of pounds to the UK. I know the personnel and the personalities have a certain level of interest, but what governments are judged on, surely, is do they deliver on their promises? And this is a government doing that.
OK, well, let's talk about promises you made and big things. And one big thing, in fact, your big thing, is industrial strategy. You set up this Industrial Strategy Advisory Council, which we're told will be focusing on 8 growth-driving sectors. How much money has it got? And can you give me one concrete example of how it's going to create growth in one of these 8 sectors, financial services or creative industries? Take your pick.
Look, well, first of all, countries need an industrial strategy. They need to focus on the sectors that will make the biggest contribution to growth. If you actually look at UK history, the last 35 years, it's been financial and professional services, advanced manufacturing, ICT, responsible, Trevor, for over half of the country's growth. So the point about this is it's not the only areas the government cares about, but there are certain sectors that need particular attention. And they are about working across government to make sure the policy environment is right, working with business in a way that hasn't been the case to date. And the key differences are this will be cross-government, it will have longevity, it will deliver the kinds of changes, whether that is on energy policy, whether it's on visas, whether it's on regulation, access to finance, that make a difference. But you develop that with the business community themselves.
I hear the words. Where's the money? Well, how much money has this thing got to invest?
You are, I think, tempting me to preempt part of the budget spending review process. But I want to say one particular thing.
The Industrial Strategy Advisory Council will have money to spend?
Let me just say one particular thing on this. One thing that is different when people compare the UK to, say, the US is a disproportionate amount of our support for what we would call industrial policy comes from the tax system. So it's not just about pots of money, it's about what is the overall quantum of support. We will never match the spending of the US on the Inflation Reduction Act, but we can work across government, make policy better in a whole range of areas to attract the kinds of investments which we're going to see some of in this investment summit on Monday.
I'm reading into that answer that, OK, you're not going to spend Biden kind of money, trillions, but, hundreds of billions, I beg your pardon. Is this thing going to have any money? But what I'm hearing is it will have no money. What it'll have is it'll be a sort of ginger group.
Well, absolutely not. It's integral to the growth mission, but I would caution you against judging a policy like this in terms of what's the kind of announcement in terms of the pot of money. If you think about advanced manufacturing, the biggest issue is our energy prices are uncompetitive compared to our peers. So that's the kind of change that needs to happen. For other sectors, it will be about how fast is the regulatory regime getting new products to market. So don't just think of it about comparing country to country and spending pots. Consider the overall policy approach that has to get better.
Just hearing what you just said, is it going to be able to bring down energy prices?
Well, you have to wait for the individual announcements, Trevor. You know, part of this is building with business long-term
You just
policy.
talked about it. I didn't.
I'm talking about the kind of areas. I'm talking about the kind of ways in which we make sure we are competitive, where we've got great strengths in life sciences or professional services. How are we keeping that advantage? How are we getting more of that investment? But let's be frank, we have lost out too many times to a country like France through their Choose France policy. It's time to stop losing it. It's time to stop winning.
Let's talk about something very, very concrete then. The chair of the body says that it's going to provide clear and strong single voice for business, nations and regions and trade unions. Here's what the most significant trade union leader in this area says about a specific thing. Sharon Graham of Unite says, what is happening in Grangemouth is an act of industrial vandalism with the loss of hundreds of jobs. The fiscal rules need to be changed so that we can invest in British industry. We need real money allocated in areas like Grangemouth. Let's say that your new council agrees with Sharon Graham. Does she get her way?
Look, it's about wiring the voice of that Industrial Strategy Council
No,
into
never
those
mind the
government
voice.
decisions.
If it says you should actually keep Grangemouth open, you should invest in jobs in the way the Unite wants, will you do it?
Well, it's about working with business. I'm not going to give you a specific decision before that body has even met, and you know that. But what I'd say, first of all, Grangemouth is led by the Energy Department. It's a huge area of priority. They're working with the Scottish Government for the first time collaboratively around that. You will have seen already on things like the steel industry in Port Talbot, we are a government committed to co-investing with the private sector to bring about a fundamentally different approach to that. So let's not say it's the same as under the previous Conservative government.
No.
On the fiscal rules, could I just say, on the fiscal rules, they have changed.
OK, I'll have one more go then. Is it conceivable that the fiscal rules that you have advocated until now might be on the table for some kind of tweaking, some kind of loosening? Now, you've seen what's in the books and the £22 billion black hole. Is that possible?
Well, you know you're going to have to wait a few days till the budget.
I'm just asking you if it's possible, because quite often you rule things out.
Well, I think what you are
you ruling that out?
Is the fact that the fiscal rules have changed. The first rule has changed to allow a greater priority for long-term capital investment. It will stop what we saw under the previous government, whereas your capital budgets are being raided to pay for revenue spending. That is a significant change from the Chancellor. And look, I'd just say, on the wider picture, you cannot have the kind of prosperity that I'm excited about, that we're talking about now, without responsibility, without seriousness, that was lacking before the election. And that priority of a long-term investment is absolutely the right thing to do.
Let me ask you about something that is serious, which business bosses are asking about. You said that there will be no national insurance rise. Does that mean that employers' contributions to national insurance will not rise or not? You can't say wait for this, because actually you've been clear about one bit of this. Be clear about this. Will employers face the same level of national insurance that they do now in the future?
You know that budget is going to be announced to Parliament, and you know I'm not going to.
I'm not asking about the budget. I'm just asking you.
You know that you are. But look, we have very clear manifesto pledges on taxation, and the Chancellor has also been clear.
But it's not clear.
This will be a budget for growth. Well,
but it's not clear.
You don't do a budget
you said,
day by day. You know that's not how things are done in the UK. We have to wait for the budget.
I'm not asking about the budget. You're not clear. You made a pledge, no rise in national insurance. I'm asking you, does that apply to both employees' NI and employers' NI?
You know that pledge was taxes on working people, so it was specifically in the manifesto a reference to employees and to income tax and a whole range of commitments, including, by the way, we also had a commitment on corporation tax. So there's a lot already in the manifesto, but you have to wait for the detail of a budget, and you know that. The point is, this will be a budget for growth. The Chancellor has been absolutely clear on that, and the stability that is necessary and the responsibility will be wired into that.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but the reason I'm interested in this is, here's what somebody said about the whole issue of the national insurance. It's a tax on jobs for employers at the worst possible time. Labour will back business to keep British firms. You know who that is? So what you're saying is that's still possible, that there'll be a
What I'm
tax on
saying
jobs.
is Labour will back businesses to keep British firms competitive.
And you might...
And across the board, there will be an increase in the investability of the business environment.
Why can't you just say that actually it means employees and employers?
Because the Chancellor is giving a budget in a short period of time, and you know, I'm going to respect that, and she's going to do that in the usual way.
Okay.
And
I don't think anyone could. This is still open.
I don't think anyone could be clearer about how committed this government is to investment, to growth. You will see in the investment summit tomorrow sums of money, things that have been transformed, the business environment transformed by the change.
I understand. Look, the reason that I'm harroting you about all of these things is that businesses want clarity. They want stability. And if I'm to be straight with you, the evidence is that they don't think you are giving them. Let me show you something. The Institute of Directors tracks economic confidence amongst businesses. Here's what they said last week. What they think their likelihood of investment over the next 12 months. That red drop is you. And this is the consequence of, to be honest, a conversation we've just been having in which when I ask you, are you going to do this, are you going to do that, you tell me, don't know.
No.
That's the consequence.
Let me be clear. That is a consequence of the fact that as we walked into office, there were a whole range of things that had not been budgeted for.
You can't put this on the Tories. This is them.
Absolutely.
This is you.
If you put to public sector pay bodies a process to set public sector pay and you hide that in a desk and you don't reveal that to the public, that is negligent from the previous government. We've got to clear that up. When you've got things, flagship education policies that you didn't fund from the previous government. So that reflects, yes, the situation, as the IFS said, is an unenviable one. We've got to clear it up, but we're going to clear it up in a way which has that platform for growth, prosperity, jobs, better times for everyone across the UK.
Just quick last question. You are negotiating, or in the process of negotiating, a free trade agreement with Israel. Would you consider holding back on an agreement in order to influence Israeli behaviour in Lebanon and Gaza?
Well, we don't conduct foreign policy through free trade agreement negotiations. I do think there is a wider point that's right to say, which is the process of closer economic relationships with a whole range of countries is in itself a good thing. That's a sound basis for good relations, for peace and prosperity. But we wouldn't use the free trade agreement as a leverage of a foreign policy tool in that regard. That's about the diplomatic side of government, and the de-escalation that we're seeking, the two-state solution ultimately that we're seeking is an integral part of that. But I wouldn't specifically...
So you wouldn't use trade weapons to influence
Not in that way, no. I think trade policy has more than an economic impact, but we wouldn't use it as a specific tool in that way.
Jonathan Reynolds, thank you very much for your time this morning.